Good morning, everyone. Morning, everyone. I'd first of all like to extend my thanks very much to the TED Organising Committee here at SRM for providing me with this opportunity to stand in front of you today and to share with you some of my experiences. One of the things that you might already notice, the eagle-eyed amongst you, is that I'm English. I have a 22-year corporate career behind me back in the UK. And yet, I threw that all away and dragged my family 5,000 miles across the world to come to work as chief executive of an NGO in Chennai. And what I'd like to do today is share with you the story that inspired me to make that decision. Picture the scene, if you will. Many of you in the audience are from the student body, so this will be easier for some of you. For some of the rest of you, this might be casting your minds back a few years. Picture the scene. It's 1993, and two young girls are just leaving college at the end of a hard week. They've been studying really hard. Vandana, who's a student of social work, Vaishnavi, who's studying business, coming out of college, chatting away, as you would do. Two normal girls, healthy, happy, chatting about the weekend, what is it they're going to be doing, all of that kind of issue. They're walking through the streets and approaching a very busy main road. As they're walking, they spot, in the distance, a young woman, semi-naked, clearly deranged, wandering around in the middle of this traffic. Buses and trucks thundering past her, clearly in danger. Without a thought for their own safety, these two young girls dive into the middle of the traffic and rescue this woman to the relative safety of the pavement. How many of us would have even seen this young girl, let alone taken some action about it? But that, of course, was the start of their problems. What happened over the next few days is that Vandana and Vaishnavi discovered a crash course in what is wrong with the mental health service that is provided to most people across India. They made many calls to multiple agencies and discovered that no one was prepared to deal with this poor young woman that they just rescued. The combination of poverty, mental illness, and her being a woman meant that there was simply nowhere for her to go. So what did these two young girls do? They took her home. What else were they going to do? They took her home and started caring for her, and the seeds of the organisation that is now called the Banyan were formed. Now, just to put a little bit of context to this, mental health, according to the WHO, will affect 1 in 4 families. So across 200 population in this room, at least 50 of you will have a family member that suffers from a mental health problem. Across Asia, mental health is the second biggest contributor to disability. And yet, neither government, nor funding agencies, nor the general public prioritise the contributions that they could make, the donations they could make, towards this particular cause. What that means, of course, is for the Vandana and Vaishnavi, they found an uphill battle to raise resources if they were going to get their project off the ground. Now, of course, the fact that I'm standing here 17 years later shows that the battles were won, resources were raised, and the organisation was able to start functioning, which is fantastic. They started rescuing women. Yeah. Why did that go backwards? Yeah. They started rescuing women from the streets to a 3-bed house in the west of the city of Chennai. 3 beds, we figured, would be plenty big enough for the 25 or so cases we thought would come through the doors. Now, the way in which the Banyan operates is founded on a couple of key points. One is that we fundamentally believe that mental illness does not mean the end of a productive life. In fact, many conditions can be managed successfully and people can return to happy, normal, productive lives provided they have the right kind of support. And the Banyan's philosophy has always been to provide that right kind of support to help the individual understand what it is that their illness means for them and how it is that they can manage that so they can recover. So the idea of the Banyan was always a transit kind of facility, one where residents were rescued, where they went through a recovery phase, and where we ended up rehabilitating them by reintegrating them with families. In fact, the first reintegration happened within a few months of the organisation starting. When we crossed 100 within this 3-bedroomed apartment, space had become a significant issue for us. And we were very lucky that at the time we had the support of the then Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu, who provided us with the grounds on which we were able to develop a 250-bedded facility, which we moved into in 2001. A facility which we call a daculum meaning home or shelter. Within a daculum itself, at the moment, we have 179 residents who are going through or undertaking a period of care and recovery through the work that we do. The facility provides a combination of medical intervention, using a psychiatrist, plus social interventions like therapy, like counselling, like work, like access to support services, all combined together to try to help move the individual from illness through to wellness. As women recover and as they make progress, then what we try to do is to help them to be reintegrated with their families. We do this through a process of trial leaves, where they spend increasingly long periods of time away from us and with their families until they are in a position where they can make that move permanent. Over the years, we've dealt with 1,600 such women, rehabilitating around 950 of them with families. Now, just to illustrate that kind of point, I'd like to talk to you a little bit about one particular case, Mutalakshmi. Mutalakshmi is not pictured on any of these pictures, by the way. Mutalakshmi came to the Banyan around 18 months ago. She was referred to us with a combination of mild learning difficulties and a clear case of psychosis. She was very, very cooperative when she came to us, worked very well with our psychologists, our social workers, and our psychiatrist in terms of understanding what her condition was, and made fairly rapid progress. She was able to take on work within the organisation as part of her therapy, and was able to do that completely unsupervised, very cooperatively. Sadly, because of the nature of her illness, she was unable to remember where her family even came from. She expressed in her therapy sessions constantly the need to go home to her brother, and really wanted to go back to see him, but had no way of contacting him. As the weeks progressed, as our interventions on her recovery improved, so her memory did, and she was able to access those memories about where her family came from. And eventually, with the help of the local police, we were able to trace her brother to a small town just outside Salem, and to arrange to visit him and to get him to understand the nature of the problem. Now, our social workers do a lot of work with the families in advance of us even trying to get families and residents reunited, because a lot of the problems about reuniting people is the lack of understanding of what the illness actually means. So they did a lot of work with this brother, and eventually we took Mutalakshmi back home. Now, Mutalakshmi was very excited about going home. One of these things that she was really, really keen to do and had been for the last few months.